I think we don't have any better way of finishing a Python conference talking about other language. But the goal of this talk is to convince you that other languages are okay to use, and sometimes we are more scared about other languages, like, oh, this return is terrible. But yeah, the goal would be for maybe to get you more familiarized with C++ overall. It was a long time since I talked about things that I do at my paid work, so bear with me. This will not be a super sponsoring talk or anything like that. So the first thing that we need to have in our heads when we talk about interacting with other programming languages is extending Python overall. Their documentation, in my opinion, it's simple enough that you can go there, read it, maybe do your first extension, and then continue with your life, right? But the problem is, which language should we use all the time? Recently, with the latest development, of course, maybe you think Rust is one of the best options out there. Some people will think C++. Or other languages that also can complement it will be SIG. But before that, in order for you to interact, maybe you remember from this morning keynote that Python has been great, at least in the TOB, I don't know how to say it, index. But also, if you look into other surveys, this is quite old. I think this is not the one from this year, but the last year. There are many other programming languages, even if you see like, yeah, we love Python, but professional development, for example, there, for some reason, JavaScript is the first. And then you have other programming languages as well, like TypeScript and all these other new things. So Python is still in the top, so I don't need to convince you about that. So even though everyone's loves, for example, Rust, which is the kind of outlier you see there, the little dot, Python is still, as this morning was mentioned, the king. I have never seen before in my life like a change of 2 digits in the TOB index. So it's very impressive that still, after all the Rust and new languages that are popping up, Python still remains on the first place. But the world runs on C++, and you can prove me wrong on this, but even you might think that you're using Python all the time, but you are using C++. Drivers run on C++. Your car, if you have a car, most likely has some C++. The coffee machine from the coffee break maybe has some C++. I don't know, maybe some Fortran, I don't know. So now you're thinking, oh my God, this is terrible, but don't be afraid. The idea here is for you to humanize C++ for you all, so you are maybe more tempted to, at some point, give it a try. As I said before, you most probably use C++ on your daily basis, so who here uses TensorFlow or has used TensorFlow at some point for doing calculation? Well, a few hands. As you know, TensorFlow is based on also a lot of C++ there. PyTorch, similar things with the Torch project, which is purely C++. There is this machine learning or AI engine that I found that's called Ray, also has C++. SciPy still has some C++. NumPy has C++ as well. Used to have more Fortran, but now it has been rewritten in C. And overall, the message that at least I get, even if I knew in C++, is that C++ is very a difficult language. Who agrees that C++ is a difficult language? Right? I will not blame you, don't worry. So I want to put in super simple words a few examples, make you maybe convince you a little bit of like, well, it depends on the person that writes the code. So if you look at this super basic Python implementation that I don't even know if it works, but at least I wrote it thinking it works, and we see the C++ counterpart, I really expect that you're not too afraid. Well, there are a few things that are, well, this public, there's a lot of braces everywhere, there's this thing called void, super strange. But the idea of the code on the right should be not too strange for you. You can follow it, I guess. Well, you have the Python implementation on the other side, right? So here, since, what it's called within the C++ world, modern C++, they decided at some point, saying, you know what, there's a lot of languages out there, they have really cool features, let's try to implement a few. So even back then, there were a few features that were included in the language. The first one is the auto keyword that has a way of you to feel more like you're in Python land because you don't need to worry about the return type and just declare things and continue with your life and be a happy developer. Similarly, with ranges, you might think that, oh, I mean, of course, with the Python for loop with the range is very simple to do. Well, in other languages, you need to do a little bit more things, but since C++20, you have this way of iterating a little value array, super simple and more Pythonic, even though I don't like that word, but anyway. Similar with kind of like an idea of an enumerate. You see, this might remind you of something similar in Python as well with the enumerate method, built-in function, sorry. You also have this way of printing. I mean, in the matter of fact, in this paper, well, because they write papers to improve C++, there was mention of the print function for Python, taking some inspiration in order to know how to format those things. Who thinks, after all these examples, that Python is simpler? Raise your hand. Don't be afraid. I will never ask you like, you. No, I will never ask you. So there's always in my talks, I like to showcase this, that simplicity of languages is something very subjective overall. But for some people might be very scared about this function. I remember in some beginner tutorials, they were seeing like lambdas, they were, oh, lambdas, I don't know what it is, right? So if you're come from a functional programming background, you will be maybe, oh, that's a very weird things of declaring functions, right? But then, for example, some people is not familiarized with this snippet. Who doesn't know? Don't be afraid. Okay. So then, in this case, you can it's valid Python code. You can initialize a list with A, B, C, D, and E as elements. You can try it in your computer, so the people that have the computer. You can have something like that. That's also Python. Can be complicated because you can play around with, the type declaration and then say, okay, well, I will have some conditional function that, depending on the data type, will do something or not. Who knows what this does? This X can be a string. So then with this, it's kind of a little hack for people that do code wolfing to detect if something is a string in Python. Because if you multiply it by 0, it's empty string. Weird, right? This also something that I really like to put. If you put this in a file and run it, I promise you will not remove any file from your computer. Put it in a file, run it, and you will see what happens. Or everyone has been using maybe lookup tables. Sometimes you have a big table, so when it's 0 something, that's clearly a lookup table, right? Because you know that the binary value of 22, and then if you shift that bitwise, oh, come on, I mean, you need to know. Basic Python. Or this one, for example, that I always like to show as well, is basic Python as well. Who knows that has never seen this snippet? Because a few people here, Rodrigo knows these snippets. But this is clearly to detect if n it's a power of 2. And it's Python, see? So my point here is that Python also got, no, this is not Python, this is Pyth. Yeah, no, it's Pyth. It's if you're interested in code golfing, you can check it out, but that's not Python. Languages can be simple and complicated. So don't put prejudice of people like, oh, the language is terrible. Try it out. Things can be simple, things can be complicated, but overall you can try them out without the prejudice. But this talk is about Qt. What's the deal with that? Okay, so like Python, Qt has been around for a long time. It was solving a real problem. They started development in the latest 80s, and the first release was in the early 90s, similar to Python. And one of the things that I believe that there are many things in common between Python and Qt, because Qt tried for the ecosystem, for the C++ ecosystem, to include a lot of things that could be simple API for people and add a lot of batteries to the language, which is something that everyone feels very proud about in Python. They say, oh, everything is included, we can do many nice things. Qt tried to do that for the C++ folks, so it was very right on time. There are many modules in Qt. Qt is a huge framework, takes a long time to compile, even in newer machines. There are things to do some containers, DBus connections. You can have, well, there's a testing suite itself. There are different ways of creating user interface with two different technologies. You have a lot of network API as well if you want to do, which sometimes is simpler than C++. And there are many even new modules that allow you to do whatever you prefer, connecting with printers, serial ports, serial bus, OPC UA, MQTT, whatever, you name it. I'm almost certain that most of these modules will have a Python equivalent at some point. And many times I was fighting off like people that wanted to, for example, to have, what was this? Well, was it charts? No, it was something else. I think it was MQTT. Someone really wants to have the API, and I was like, there is this MQTT model in Python. You can use that. No, but I want to use the Qt API because everyone knows C++. Okay. So there was a real use case for those cases. But for the C++ developers that they didn't want to touch Python because they were used to C++, not because they didn't like it, this is great. And still, like, Qt is everywhere, but some people don't know still. But we are PyCon, Portugal, right? So what's the deal with Qt and Python? There are Python bindings, of course. And two, to be honest. A lot of you might think, oh, PyQt, yes, I know it, I have used it. I had a tutorial when I was in high school or in the university, and we create this nice interface. Well, one of them, it's created by an external company, and the other one is created by the same people that developed the C++ framework. PySide is what you can say the official set of bindings, right? Surprising, right? And PyQt is a different set of bindings developed by a different company since ages in the UK. And because Qt, one of the features it has is open source and commercial as well. On the spirit of open source software, we didn't want to say like send us cease and desist, like give us the name, buy, and do whatever you want. But like create a different one. So as I said before, there's commercial licenses, or you have a difference. Then in case you are more comfortable with having LGPL, some people don't. That's why GPL might be the option for some of you. The support of platform is a lot of things. There's Android support in both projects. However, I have never managed to make PyQt Android support works. If you have, congratulations, but it's very complicated. And both exposes the C++ API of Qt to the Python world. But PySide, and I am super biased here because I'm one of the developers, offer many more things. Now I want to convince you what the other things are. So in the and more, well, it's very easy. You install PySide 6, and you can have a few things. So the first is that you can get the API as you have it in the Qt framework without any problem, but also you have NumPy support. So this is one of the things that we work a little bit. In order to every place when in this API you will accept a sequence, a Python sequence, you also can pass a NumPy array. And internally we have something that converts that to C++ and can call the C++ API and everything. Tooling. Everyone loves tooling because everyone now is coding in Rust and say, oh, Cargo is the solution to all our problems. So we also have something very similar, but not super powerful as Cargo. So you can have and manage your project, start new things, create new templates, develop, and so on and so forth. Deployment itself, this is something that happens in every single community or forum that I go, that people think that PyInstaller, Py2app, Py2exe creates an executable of your code and everything is hidden and nobody will say what your code has inside. But if you don't know, they're not really doing that. They're just doing the compilation in the Python level and then zipping that thing when you double click and zips execute and then remove the things. So the only one that I know that really takes your Python code, create a C extension out of it, and then create an executable for you to distribute, it's Nuitka. And the reason that's also an open source project, you can check it out. We said, let's not reinvent the wheel. So for our own deployment tool, we use that thing as a backend so people can just do PySide 6 deploy. And then you have, well, it's almost finishing then, and they will generate the final binary. Super slow. Maybe it froze. I know. It's very slow because it's a lot of things going on inside. But yeah, you need to believe me, it will create tetrix.bin and then, oh, it's almost there. No. Okay, I will next one. The other option that is something that every time that I was in a conference talking about this thing when I was just starting working in this project was like, yeah, but the C++ API is camel case. That's not Pythonic. And I was, okay, well, fine. I mean, look at Beautiful Soup that offered both of them. But I say, okay, fair enough. So is there any way that you can change this API in a not so intrusive way? Well, you can see there on the left time that usual C++, well, Python Qt code, we noticed that there is a way that at runtime, you could play around with type inference and renaming the attributes of classes, and you can have what you have on the right. There are a few things going on here. The first one is the snake case. As you see, there is this, for example, the add widget method at the end. You see the camel case, well, it's not camel case, but the case. And you see this replaced with the underscore, right? Similarly, you have this property of an object called table that you were setting set column count, but in that case, that was altering an internal Qt property. So now you have access directly to it with .column count. This was very silly. I pushed a lot of people in order to say this is an amazing thing, and since we put it out, I think people were very happy because now your code looks more Python friendly. The other thing that we had is at some point we thought, hey, I mean, there are more interpreters. Why if we don't try to add support for something else? So we did a lot of things in order to make PyPy compatible, and they were also very happy about it. They said that they had preliminary support. Well, we had support at least until 6.5. Currently, we are in 3 and 6.9, but it's very difficult to keep up if you want to maintain different interpreters compatibility when you have C extension-based modules. ARM64 packages as well. So we do provide universal WIF for macOS, ARC64 for Linux, and even Windows for ARM packages as well. Do we have anyone here using Windows on ARM64? Just for research purposes. Okay, I will take a picture, mental picture. Okay, one. And I will send it to my PM to convince them, like, see, nobody is using it. Anyway, Android support as well. And here is a good thing about open source projects, that you can rely on other projects. For example, you might have heard about the library Kiwi. Kiwi, also for creating user interfaces. They do have a project called Python for Android. And we noticed, like, I mean, if we want to do a similar thing, can we reuse it? Well, licenses were compatible. So we said, okay, let's use it. So we use that for creating some cross-compile wheels, and then to put some infrastructure on the top, so we can have, with the PyCon deploy Android, very long name, we can deploy now for Android without any problem. So you also can have Android applications. Do we have anyone here doing Python development for Android? Again, a lot of. But anyway, the thing works. See, you see there's a nice icon there, I think. And iOS is currently being researched. Again, because I have one angry person, one blog post comment saying, like, when do you add support for iOS? And I was like, okay, let's give it a try. But there have been a lot of movement on this side. A lot of people have been trying to bring iOS support for Python in general. So I believe that is aligned with what Python is doing. Async.io support as well. We had a very prominent engineer doing this thing for a while. Then he left the team, and now we don't have any maintainer, and we cannot keep up with the changes. But if you're interested in Async.io and user interfaces, let me know so we can talk, because I don't know how to do it. But as I'm fair, all the time I tell you, yeah, Qt is great. I really want to give you an insight, super brief summary of the other options we have now. So after this talk, after the beach, and after you go to sleep, and tomorrow we have some time after tutorials, maybe you can try a few and decide by your own. I don't want to push you that Qt is the best framework in the world. So Kiwi, I told you before that Kiwi is a very popular, getting a lot of traction. There's a lot of people donating to this project because they believe that it's amazing. You have a test code there like this. It's MIT. They have support for mobile platforms as well. They have very good tutorials, so you can give it a try. There's also Flet. A lot of people, at least in the forums I am around, they're like, oh yeah, Flet is the future because it uses Flutter. I mean, yeah, you can use it for creating your calculator application for sure, and maybe something that drag and drop files and display some stuff. But the thing here is that what I believe that what is happening with Flutter is that there, in the latest month, has been some research, I think, a new use cases for people using this in the real world. How many of you have seen a Flutter interface in some real device outside? One person? Lucky you. But it's very difficult, and some people say, yeah, this is the future, but it's very early, in my opinion, for all the things that the other frameworks can do. Toga is also a framework. Maybe you are familiar with VWare, the project. Well, Toga is the name of the UI, the UI framework that they have there, so you can create a few things. They're part of the team, and the creator usually participate in many conferences. So if you see him around and you contribute, you will give him a golden token for you contributed to the project. You cannot beat that with any other open source project. But it's very simple for teaching people how to code and create interfaces. Maybe you saw some examples when PyScript was announced, that also there was some UI on WebAssembly showing on the screen, the browser, also very convenient. Again, I believe it's a good thing to start and do some basic applications, but when we are talking about professional solutions, might not be the best fit. And just for comparison, this is a simple Hello World PySite, but you already know the story because I told you already. So now a topic that is more interesting than creating user interface, in my opinion, is how the bindings are generated. In a nutshell, you have some code and you want to put it inside a black box, and then you have a Python package with bindings, right? So what is happening inside this box is that we feed these framework headers into a binding generator, which is in the middle. We create some type system information regarding each class, and we do some transfer. When they're censoring me, no. And then you generate some CPython extension code. So then you have this code that you can compile and create a Python wheel package. A couple of examples of why I'm trying to tell you with this, because it's the last talk from the conference, so everyone is super tired and looking forward for the beach, is like this. Let's take this binding generator, PyBind11. Maybe some of you have heard, maybe some of you have used. You have your code there, a function that adds 2 integers, and then you can create your module, put the documentation, and include the definition of the add module there. You compile it, you use it. Good approach. The problem that, at least in the team, we had many years ago with this is that you need to do that thing within the source code. So we created a new binding generator tool that the idea, well, one of the main goals is that you don't touch the original code. You have your C++ code, your header file somewhere, then you specify something else on the side, and then you do your thing and compile and generate the bindings. It's very useful because you don't want to touch code that has been developed since forever, right? There are many other options as well. As you told you, these other binding generator by PyQt, they have their own called zip. There are other, of course, Swig, if you like a lot of generated code. Nanobind is one of the new ones. So again, if that's your thing, you can try it out. So now a few technical details of this thing. If you're interested in Python internals, I believe that this is one of the, not greatest achievement, but something very important from this project is that we are using the Python limited API. What this means, in really, really simple words, is that when we do a release, we don't need to have one wheel per Python version per operating system. As you can see, if you go, for example, to the NumPy, now on PyPI page, and double page, like, whoa, like all these wheels, it's super complicated, so you can have one package that works for many Python versions. And so yeah, that's one of the things. The other thing is that for creating bindings for this huge project, because it's a huge thing itself, and then you need to generate bindings and compile everything together, the build system and the packaging infrastructure is very, very, very complicated. So for that, I will have no more further slides because it's too complicated in order to, very depressing to talk on this here. But there are many options out there that are very useful for packaging and building this kind of complex software. There is, for example, Scikit Build. I think at this talk, well, there was also one from this year. It's very informative, and they mention how you can simplify all this workflow and custom build infrastructure that you can have. So what can you do with Qt for Python or PySide? So this is, for example, one of the most oldest example in Qt, which is a Tetrix application. Some of you might think right away, like, oh, this looks very ugly, very like maybe super old with this like buttons and gray color or whatever. Well, you can still do more modern things. Let's say you get tired of Visual Studio Code and you will start the new IDE. You can create an interface that resembles a little bit the styles that you can get in these things, change the color as you please, and create whatever tool you want to do if that's your thing. It's very important that a lot of people in the Qt ecosystem rejected this kind of application, what you have in your computers, like VS Code, for example, because in the early days, that old, the whole point of UI frameworks was to have a native look and feel. So if you were in Windows, it was like looking at like the Windows thing. On Mac, it was looking like Mac, right? But now everything is broken because of another package that ends in Tron. I will not say the name. There's another example. For example, this is in many conferences. We do have the real arm, and with this interface, you can move the little robot arm, and you can move some stuff. You can also do. If you want to do more fancy things, maybe you are also hopping off some of the fancy new cars that have a screen in front. One of them brands ends with Tesla, and there are other brands as well, like Benz or W or something. And many of them have these beautiful screens that maybe you can see with detection and stuff. Well, those things are also using Qt. Many people don't know, but they're using. And they're not paying anything because they're using open source. But anyway, the other thing that is very interesting for me is that, as you know, CPython, at least the standard implementation, is written in C. And then you can embed this thing in a C++ application. So if I have a Qt C++ application, I can embed a Python interpreter on my application. So then I have a C++ application running a Python interpreter in the middle, so inside, and then you can have maybe a plugin system, very similar. You might think, well, nobody uses that. They do in VFX industry. Most of these beautiful, amazing 3D, whatever things that, I don't know, all these animation studios are using, they have ways of adding plugins in Python because they do have an interpreter inside. And we have, for example, one customer is called Autodesk Maya. Maybe you know Autodesk. They do this thing all the time. And this is literally the base of what they have in their system. So in this example, what I'm doing very slowly is that I would like to go to the menu of this C++ application and change the button run into a very long one. And that's it. You can do it as well. But you will say, OK, real applications, and this is just the last slides of the presentation, so bear with me, we're almost there. As I told you before, many of the panels that are in cards are running this thing. A lot of entertainment systems of planes also have been using. I have never seen one in that, but I know there's a few Boeings I think they're using. I don't know if I can say brands. Is this recorded? Human-machine interfaces. There is a huge trucks. I have seen pictures of like monsters using some cute interface inside. I was like, whoa, imagine a bug there. I always tell the story. My dentist close to my office has cute in one of the software that they display the radio, whatever thingy with your teeth, whatever. That's also a cute interface. So that gives you more motivation to have a bug-free framework, right? Wearables. There's a lot of smartwatch coming that might have, I cannot say because it's from a different country, but there's a new operating system that is being developed, and it will have a lot of wearables and mobile devices with Qt inside. The country name ends with Na, but I will not say anything else. And of course, desktop. I think that I overheard some other people's conversation here. Some people here use Telegram desktop on your computer. That's written in Qt, for example, and you didn't know. You thought, no, it was Electron. What? So yeah, exactly. And this is my next point. Some people, it sounds very picky, but it's like, oh, Telegram desktop is so fast and it looks so modern. What did they do with the Electron app? Well, it's not Electron. It's C++ and Qt. So yeah, I mean, the point here is that this is a very old technology. It's really everywhere. And many newcomers, when they start to build user interfaces, they feel like, oh, no, that's super old. Nobody used that. Well, that's the goal of this talk, is to try to maybe convince you that it is something that you can play around and create your calculator, but also you can create final solutions for customers or professional things. So if you want to learn more about the project, we do have a Telegram group that is connected to IRC because some people kind of moved from IRC for some reason. It's also connected with Matrix because some people like Matrix. In the wiki page, we even post even our weekly meetings when the team works, so you know what we are doing, and the documentation can be found there. And that will be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the talk. We have a little time for any questions. Yeah.
Cristiano, thanks for your talk. I'm particularly interested in the, let's say, compiling down to an executable thing you showed. Two questions there. I suspect it's not, let's say, cross-platform compile, so you need to build the executable on the platform, right? And it's not statically linked. I suppose you would need to ship the dynamic libraries along with the executable. Okay, and then package it from there, right?
Yeah, everything is.
Thanks.
I don't know if with Universal Python, well, this project, I've never tried. I don't know what they do there, if you could create a package, but it will be up for the NUICA folks. That's a good thing of using another versus project that you don't need to do. Sorry. No, but check, even if you don't want to say, oh, I don't want to try this thing, I hate this talk, try NUICA for your projects. It's really a good thing. No, he was just for taking a picture. So it's not. Cool. Thank you.